So when I think of super dramatic shadows, I actually think of Disney movies. They use these a lot for like story development and like tension and to make things ominous or dramatic, to make the audience feel fear. Yeah, they did such a good job of storytelling using cast shadows, and I think there aren't sometimes a lot of that in painting. So I thought we could play with that a little bit today. I specifically was thinking of Xiao Jiang, who's a contemporary painter, and he does these like very long shadows, kind of regardless of what the time of day might be. He's always casting these super long shadows that kind of remind me of Edward Hopper paintings in a lot of ways, but also less like more boxy is like these Wayne Thiebaud, where he often would use these colorful like turquoise pop art kind of shadows, these great colors. You could do something like that. Um, John Singer Sargent, this one, look at the shadow here, and then look at this study that doesn't have the shadow, and you can see what a difference it makes. He always was having his figures cast these shadows, which was not, I don't think, that typical. Edward Hopper also likes to have these shadows being cast by buildings and people. Um, there's something really dramatic about these long shadows. DiCurcio, I gotta learn how to say that. This whole series was just about the setting sun and the shadows, the long shadows it made, which of course the time of day affects the shadows, the quality of the light, if there's clouds over the sun, if it's moonlight, all that stuff. So we can individually look at whatever your source material is you want to use. Grant Wood had look at like the shadows under the plants, like the idea of the moon traveling. Luke Timmons, contemporary painter, does these very muted gray shadows or like gray green, and it's a huge part of his work too. It's hard to imagine those without the shadows. But there are some people who don't ever use shadows. Like I was thinking of Mary Faden, and her still lifes. I don't think she hardly ever uses shadows. There's objects are not casting anything, which makes them like even more graphic than they are in the painting style, which is very flat and with a different perspective. So yes. Oh, and like that, there's people like Daniel Orchard who some of these objects have shadows and some don't. So you could really mess with that. But what to know about cast shadows? According to Renoir, no color is black, so you should not have black shadows. Instead, you can experiment with blues, greens, and purples. I also like to play with complementary colors. If I have like a green vase, I might make the shadow some form of red, or a green that's been desaturated with red. I also like to play with just darker versions of the local color. And by local color, we mean like what the color our brain perceives them to be. So, grass is green, and these Lois Dodge, she's painted a darker green version on top of the green grass. So if it was an orange, it'd be an orange darkened shadow, an apple, a darkened red shadow. Oops, pause this, hold on. Life on the BQE, sorry about that. Warm light means you should do cool shadows. This is never a rule. These are suggestions to try. Looking at some more of Dodd's paintings. Shadows in the snow are blue, and that has to do with the way the wavelengths hit it, and I am not smart enough to explain it. But yes, so shadows on snow are some form of blue, like these beautiful Dodd paintings. If it's a really sunny day, I like blue-violet shadows, I guess because it's kind of in response and in complement to the yellowish rays. But yeah, avoid black, as Renoir said, unless you're being super dramatic. If you want to make a dramatic painting that's not realistic, then definitely do black. And just a few random things. Direct sunlight creates really crisp edges the closer the light source is, and the further away, or if it's like cloudy, it's a softer edge. And anything in a clear thing, we'll see the color of the thing in the glass on the shadow. But again, you should always break these rules if it works for the paintings. You do not have to live or die by this. This is the part where if you don't want to hear about perspective, you can get off. But you can do perspective drawing to get an accurate shadow instead of just witnessing it. I mean, I suggest you just witness it, but here you go. So what you're gonna do is figure out where your light source is, and then draw a straight line from that. And where that straight line hits the horizon line, that's the cast shadow horizon line. You're gonna draw lines from the light source to the top edges of your object that go all the way down the page. And then, in this case, it's the three corners of the box. but it could be the round edges of a ball or, you know, shape. Then you're going to go down to where that line emerges with the horizon line, and you're going to draw the 3 lines that go through the bottom 3 sides of the object or multiple sides of the object. And then what you're going to do is you are going to mark where those lines intersect. So where those 3 marks are where my lines from the light source, and from the horizon line intersect, okay? And then we're gonna go in and we're gonna erase all the other things that were coming off the edge of that, the rest of the line. So we just have this like emerging like trio of shapes. And some objects, if it's a very complicated object, you might have a lot more points than just 3 points, but this is for this cube. And then what you're going to do is you are going to connect those green dots. Do you see how on the bottom edge I've connected them? And that is starting to give us the outline of where the shadow would be. So this is like where it really would be, versus I am an eyeballer with shadows, but if you want to be really precise, you can use this method. And then get rid of all your other lines except for that shape that we've established with our lines from the light source and the horizon line. And then you are going to be left with the shadow shape, and you can fill that in. And there's your shadow. See you tomorrow. Bye.